the Atlantic Ocean. A vast, unforgiving expanse of deep blue, stretching from one horizon to the other. For centuries, its waves have carried explorers, traders, and dreamers. Yet, within this immense body of water, there lies a region veiled in shadow and whispered legend. It is an area that does not appear on any official map. It is known to sailors. It is known to pilots worldwide. They speak its name with a mix of fear and fascination. This is the Bermuda Triangle, a seemingly ordinary patch of ocean, bounded by points in Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico. Bermuda, Florida, Puerto Rico. It is a place where the rules of our world seem to bend. The line between the known and the unknown blurs into the mist. Here, the sea tells stories, not of triumphant voyages or safe returns, stories of sudden silence and inexplicable loss. Ships found adrift, crews vanished without a trace, logbooks ending mid-sentence, entire squadrons of military aircraft flying into clear skies, then gone from radar and radio forever. These are documented events from our own time, involving modern vessels and sophisticated technology. The sheer number of incidents is staggering. Each lost soul adds another layer to the enigma. For decades, the world has been captivated by the questions that linger here. What unseen force is at work? A meteorological anomaly, a unique confluence of violent weather patterns, a magnetic vortex that wrecks compasses, or something far more bizarre beyond conventional science? Theories range from rogue waves to human error, from lost technologies to otherworldly intervention. The silence from the deep offers no answers. Often called the Devil's Triangle, a graveyard of steel and souls. Official records list hundreds of ships. Official records list aircraft. Thousands of lives claimed by murky depths. Each one represents a family left to wonder. Fathers, mothers, sons, daughters. Their stories are the haunting heart of the Bermuda Triangle. The chilling quiet that follows each disappearance is perhaps the most terrifying part of all. In our journey, we will not simply retell the ghost stories. Instead, we will embark on a quest to separate fact from fiction. We will sift through the layers of myth like sediment on the ocean floor. Our approach is to follow the evidence wherever it may lead. We will begin with the legends, the sensational tales that ignited public imagination. A simple geographic area turned into a global phenomenon, but we will not stop there. We will peel back the veneer of sensationalism to find the core of truth beneath. This is a myth-to-truth investigation, a voyage into the heart of the mystery, armed with curiosity and a demand for answers. We will delve into archives sealed for decades, examining declassified military reports, reviewing official accident investigations. We will listen to the voices of those who were there. Rare eyewitness accounts from pilots, from sailors, from rescue workers who experienced the triangle firsthand. Their testimonies give a raw human perspective on events that grew larger than life. We will hear actual recordings of final panicked radio transmissions, words filled with confusion and dread. These are not actors. They are real people facing unknown, terrifying fates. We will turn to scientific rigor to test the popular theories. We will speak with leading oceanographers, meteorologists, physicists. Can rogue waves, powerful enough to capsize supertankers, explain some disappearances? What about methane hydrates, massive gas bubbles erupting from the seabed that could sink a ship in seconds? We will explore magnetic anomalies and the swirling, unpredictable Gulf Stream current. This film will present all sides of the story. We will give voice to skeptics and believers, to scientists and eyewitnesses. The goal is not to solve every case. Some mysteries may remain unsolved. Instead, we aim to assemble the most comprehensive picture yet. You will see the evidence, hear the testimony, and understand the science. By the end, you will be equipped to draw your own conclusions about what truly happens in the strange, silent waters of the Bermuda Triangle, moving beyond myth toward a more complex, fascinating truth. Section 1. Flight 19, The Lost Patrol. It was a routine training mission. December 5th, 1945. The war had ended just months before, and a sense of triumphant peace settled over the nation. From the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers lifted into the clear afternoon sky. This was Flight 19. At the helm was Lieutenant Charles Taylor. He was an experienced pilot and combat veteran, leading a crew of 13 airmen, all young and eager. Their flight plan was simple: a 3-legged navigational exercise over the Atlantic, east, north, southwest, back to base. It was a drill they had performed countless times before, a milk run in perfect flying weather. As the afternoon wore on, however, something went terribly wrong. The patrol completed the first leg of its journey without incident, but shortly after turning north, the first signs of trouble crackled over the radio waves. Lieutenant Taylor's voice, usually calm and authoritative, was now laced with a distinct note of confusion and anxiety. He reported that his compasses were malfunctioning, both of them. He believed he was over the Florida Keys, hundreds of miles off course. Yet the sun's position and the time of day made that geographically impossible. The men in the control tower listened, a sense of unease growing with every transmission. A simple training flight was rapidly devolving into a genuine emergency. The situation deteriorated quickly. Other pilots in the squadron could be heard on the radio, their voices betraying their own growing disorientation.
I don't know where we are. We must have got lost after that last turn.
In the control tower, operators tried desperately to get a fix on their position, but the radio signals were faint and intermittent, plagued by static. Lieutenant Taylor, disoriented and stripped of his primary navigational tools, made a fateful decision. Rejecting the tower's advice to head west towards the setting sun, which would have surely brought them to the Florida coast, he chose to lead his flight further east, deeper into the vast, empty expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. The final radio transmissions from Flight 19 are among the most haunting in aviation history. The pilots discussed their dwindling fuel supplies as daylight began to fade. The weather, once clear, started to turn with rising winds and a choppy sea below. Taylor was heard telling his men to prepare for a water landing, to stick together when they went down. Then, just after 7 o'clock in the evening, the radio signals ceased. One by one, the 5 bombers fell silent. A massive air and sea search was launched immediately, but not a single piece of wreckage, not a life raft, not a trace of the 14 men was ever found. They had vanished, swallowed by the sky and the sea. Section 2, Radio Silence. The disappearance of Flight 19 was shocking, but the tragedy was not yet over. 5 Avengers were declared missing. The Navy launched a massive rescue operation. Among the first dispatched was a PBM Mariner flying boat, a veritable giant of the sky, a flying tanker for its large fuel capacity, with a crew of 13 men. Training 49 lifted off into the darkening evening. Its mission was to fly along the last known course of Flight 19, meticulously scanning the waves for any sign of the downed airmen. The crew was experienced. The aircraft was reliable. Hopes were high for a successful rescue. The Mariner took off at 7:27 in the evening. Just 3 minutes later, it made a routine radio call to the tower, confirming its departure and position. It was the last time anyone would ever hear from the crew. After that single normal transmission, Training 49 fell completely silent. It never arrived in the search area. It never responded to repeated calls from air traffic control. Like the 5 planes it had been sent to find, the massive flying boat and its 13 crew members had simply disappeared. In the span of a few short hours, 6 military aircraft and 27 men were gone without a trace. The search and rescue effort intensified, one of the largest in naval history. Hundreds of ships and hundreds of aircraft, we scoured over 300,000 square miles. The Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. They searched for days, battling rough seas and challenging weather. They were looking for any sign, an oil slick, a piece of floating debris, a life jacket, anything that could provide a clue as to the fate of the 27 missing men. But the ocean offered nothing. It was as if the 6 aircraft had flown into another dimension, leaving behind no evidence of their existence or their demise. The official Navy report could only conclude that the cause was unknown. The silence from the official inquiry was deafening. And it was in this void that the legend of the Bermuda Triangle truly began to take root. How could 6 modern military aircraft disappear in a single evening, especially in an area so close to home? The Navy's report mentioned the mariner had a reputation for fuel vapor leaks, and the crew of a nearby tanker, the SS Gaines Mills, reported seeing a massive explosion in the sky, but no debris was ever recovered to confirm this theory, and it did nothing to explain the initial disappearance of the 5 Avengers. The case remained a baffling and deeply unsettling mystery. Long before Flight 19 captured the world's imagination, another, even larger disappearance had already cemented the region's sinister reputation. The case of the USS Cyclops is one of the greatest maritime mysteries in US Navy history. The Cyclops was not a small vessel, a colossal Proteus-class collier over 540 feet long, a true giant of the sea. March 1918, World War I. The ship was given a vital mission. It departed from Brazil loaded with over 10,000 tons of manganese ore, an essential material for munitions. 306 crew members and passengers were aboard. It set a course for Baltimore, Maryland, a brief, unscheduled stop in Barbados for engine trouble. Then it departed on March 4th for the American East Coast, expected in Baltimore on March 13th. But the date came and went with no sign. Days turned into weeks. No distress calls were received, no radio messages indicated trouble. The USS Cyclops, every single person on board, had vanished without a word. The Navy launched an extensive search, but the vast Atlantic yielded no clues. It was as if the 19,000-ton behemoth had been erased from the ocean. Investigators were baffled. Weather along the projected route was calm, not a storm. Commander George W. Worley was an experienced seaman, though some reports called him eccentric. Theories abounded. Sunk by a German submarine? Germany denied any knowledge, even after the war. Did shifting manganese ore cause a sudden capsize? Plausible, but it doesn't explain the complete lack of debris or any distress signal from the ship's powerful radio. The human cost was immense. Over 300 families were left in limbo with no wreckage, no final resting place. The mystery deepened. Sister ship Proteus, gone. Sister ship Nereus, gone. 3 sister ships, similar routes, heavy metallic ore. Investigators asked, design flaw or some unknown environmental factor? To this day, the fate of the USS Cyclops remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in US naval history. The enigma of the Bermuda Triangle is not confined to the distant past. It continues to claim victims in our modern era of GPS, satellite communication, and advanced aviation technology. On April 15, 2017, a small twin-engine MU-2B private plane departed from Puerto Rico, heading for Titusville, Florida. On board were 4 people: a prominent New York CEO, Jennifer Blumen, her 2 young sons ages 3 and 4, and their experienced pilot, Nathan Ulrich. It was meant to be the end of a family vacation, a routine flight over a well-traveled air corridor. The weather was clear, and the aircraft was equipped with modern navigation and safety equipment. The flight proceeded normally for a time, cruising at an altitude of 24,000 feet. The plane was in regular contact with air traffic controllers in Miami. Then suddenly, everything changed. At 2:10 p.m., while flying about 37 miles east of the island of Eleuthera in the Bahamas, the aircraft simply vanished from radar. There was no distress call. There was no warning of mechanical failure or bad weather. One moment, the plane was a clearly defined blip on the controller's screen, proceeding as expected. The next moment, it was gone. The controllers tried frantically to re-establish radio contact, but their calls were met with an unnerving, absolute silence. The United States Coast Guard immediately launched a search and rescue operation, dispatching aircraft and cutters to the plane's last known position. For days, they combed a vast area of the Atlantic, more than 15,000 square miles of open water. The searchers were hopeful, scanning the turquoise sea for any sign of the plane or its occupants. but the ocean was stubbornly silent. After 3 days of intensive searching, the Coast Guard made a grim discovery. They found a small debris field containing components that were identified as belonging to an MU-2B aircraft. It was a heartbreaking confirmation that the plane had gone down. Despite finding this small amount of wreckage, the core mystery remained unsolved. Why did the plane fall from the sky so suddenly and catastrophically that the pilot had no time to send a mayday call? The MU-2B aircraft has a controversial safety record, but the pilot was highly experienced with this specific model. Investigators speculated about a sudden catastrophic equipment failure or a rapid depressurization event that could have incapacitated the pilot instantly. Yet with the main fuselage and the victims never found, no definitive cause could be determined. The incident served as a chilling modern-day reminder that even with all our technology, the Triangle can still claim a vessel in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only questions and sorrow. Beyond the sterile text of official reports lie the human stories, the first-hand accounts of those who have stared into the Triangle's abyss and lived to tell the tale. These are the voices of pilots who experienced its strangeness directly. These are the voices of sailors. One of the most compelling accounts comes from a pilot named Bruce Jernan. In December 1970, Jernan, his father, and a business associate were flying a Beechcraft Bonanza from Andros Island in the Bahamas to Palm Beach, Florida. It was a familiar route, but on this day, the sky itself seemed to turn against him, behaving in ways that defied all logic and training. As they ascended, Jernan noticed a strange lens-shaped cloud forming directly in front of them. It grew at an impossible rate, swelling from a small puff into a colossal, menacing mass within minutes. Seeking to fly over it, he climbed, but the cloud climbed with him, expanding into a vast circular tunnel. With no other option, he plunged his aircraft into the darkness. Inside, he described an eerie, yellowish-grey fog, illuminated by brilliant white flashes of light that were not lightning. His navigational instruments began to spin wildly. The magnetic compass rotated aimlessly, and his electronic equipment failed completely, leaving him flying blind in an otherworldly passage. Jernan reported a feeling of weightlessness, a strange sensation as if time and space were being distorted around his aircraft. The tunnel appeared to be about a mile long, its walls lined with strange, swirling patterns. He flew straight ahead, desperate to escape. After what felt like an eternity but was likely only a few minutes, he burst out of the other side. He was back in clear blue sky. But the strangeness was not over. When he radioed Miami for his position, the air traffic controller was baffled. Jernan's plane, which should have been nowhere near the Florida coast, was already on their radar, directly over Miami Beach. The flight, which should have taken around 75 minutes, had been completed in just 47 minutes. Jernan insists he did not fly at a speed that could account for this time discrepancy. He believes his plane was propelled through a kind of electronic fog, a time-space warp that transported him over 100 miles in a matter of moments. Skeptics point to disorientation and powerful, unforecasted tailwinds. But Jernan's detailed and consistent testimony, repeated over decades, remains a cornerstone of the Triangle's lore. It is a chilling personal story that suggests the forces at work here are far more complex than simple bad weather. Section 2. The legend takes flight. The story of the Bermuda Triangle did not spring into public consciousness overnight. It was built piece by piece, story by story, through the pages of magazines and newspapers. The first seeds were sown in the years following the disappearance of Flight 19. Early media reports were factual: massive naval search, tragic loss of life. But as the mystery remained unsolved, the tone began to shift. Journalists started connecting the dots, linking the Lost Patrol to older, equally baffling disappearances like that of the USS Cyclops. An article by E.V.W. Jones in a 1950 issue of the Miami Herald highlighted the region's unusual number of lost vessels. It was in a 1952 article for Fate magazine that the story truly began to gain its supernatural flavor. Author George Sand was the first to lay out the triangular boundaries of the mysterious area. and list a series of unexplained losses within it. He titled his piece, "Sea Mystery at Our Back Door," and it was here that the idea of a paranormal influence was explicitly suggested. Sand wrote of the disappearances with a sense of awe and dread, hinting at forces beyond our comprehension. He highlighted the strange circumstances: clear weather, lack of distress calls, vanished crews, and posed the question that would come to define the legend. What is happening out there? Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, the narrative grew. Pulp magazines, men's adventure publications, these articles were not concerned with sober investigation. Their goal was to thrill and entertain. They painted a picture of a malevolent, hungry sea, a devil's triangle that actively consumed ships and planes. Eyewitness accounts, whether real or fabricated, were presented without scrutiny. The stories became more elaborate, describing green mists, spinning compasses, sudden electronic failures. The media was no longer just reporting on a mystery. It was actively shaping and magnifying it for a captivated audience. This slow burn of media attention created a fertile ground for what was to come. With each new article, the legend became more entrenched in the popular imagination. The Bermuda Triangle was evolving from a collection of isolated maritime incidents into a unified, terrifying mythos. The public was primed for a grander explanation, something that could tie all the strange events together into a single, cohesive narrative. The press had set the stage, crafting a mystery that was not just about lost ships, but about a fundamental challenge to our understanding of the world. The mystery was no longer a naval curiosity. It was a global phenomenon in the making. Section 3, the birth of a phenomenon. The scattered magazine articles and whispered tales coalesced into a cultural firestorm in 1974. This was the year Charles Berlitz published his blockbuster book, The Bermuda Triangle, the iconic cover of Charles Berlitz's 1974 book. Berlitz, a linguist and author with a flair for the dramatic, compiled decades of stories into one electrifying volume. His book was not a cautious inquiry. It was a confident assertion that something deeply strange and possibly extraterrestrial was at work in the Atlantic. It sold millions of copies, was translated into dozens of languages, and single-handedly transformed the triangle from a niche mystery into a household name around the globe. He recounted the famous disappearances of Flight 19 and the USS Cyclops in vivid, suspenseful detail. He added dozens of other lesser-known incidents to the list, creating an overwhelming impression of a region under siege by an unknown force. His theories were explosive. He suggested connections to UFOs, arguing that aliens might be abducting humans and their technology for study. He also explored the idea that the triangle was the site of the lost city of Atlantis, its advanced energy crystals still active on the seafloor, occasionally malfunctioning and causing catastrophic disruptions for passing vessels. The book's timing was perfect. The 1970s was a decade fascinated with the paranormal, ancient astronauts, and unexplained phenomena. The Bermuda Triangle tapped directly into this cultural zeitgeist. It was read not as fiction, but as a daring expose of a truth that governments were hiding from the public. Television documentaries, talk shows, and movies quickly followed, amplifying Berlitz's claims and cementing the image of the Triangle as a place of paranormal peril. For millions of people, the myth had become an undeniable reality. The question was no longer if ships vanished, but why. Berlitz's narrative was powerful because it offered answers, however fantastical, to questions that had none. Official reports that concluded with cause unknown were unsatisfying. Berlitz filled that void with a grand, thrilling conspiracy. He portrayed the scientific community as closed-minded and official agencies as secretive. His book empowered the reader, inviting them to believe they were in on a secret that the establishment refused to acknowledge. The Bermuda Triangle was no longer just a location. It was a belief system, a testament to the idea that the world was far more mysterious and magical than science would have us believe. Section 4. Stretching the truth. As the Bermuda Triangle phenomenon exploded, a critical backlash began to form. researchers and journalists started re-examining the cases popularized by Charles Berlitz. They found a pattern of exaggeration, misinformation, outright fabrication. The sensational stories that had captivated millions began to unravel. One of the most effective critics was librarian and pilot Lawrence David Cush. In 1975, he published The Bermuda Triangle Mystery, Solved. His method was simple. He went back to the primary sources. He reviewed newspaper articles. He reviewed weather reports. He reviewed Navy investigation files. He reviewed Air Force investigation files. He reviewed Coast Guard investigation files. He discovered the reality was often far more mundane than the legends suggested. Many disappearances were not mysterious at all. Some cases happened outside the Triangle, in the Pacific Ocean. Others occurred off the Irish coast. Some vessels never existed. Names appeared invented to lengthen the list. A key myth element was vanished in calm seas and clear skies. Cush showed this was frequently false. Flight 19, weather clear at takeoff. Later that evening, ship reports described high winds. They reported mountainous seas. Those conditions make finding wreckage nearly impossible. Other incidents occurred during violent, well-documented hurricanes. Storytellers had omitted the weather reports. A storm was less exciting than a time warp or an alien abduction. This selective reporting built the myth. Cush noted authors often failed to mention when wreckage was later found, or when a logical cause was determined. A boat reported vanished might be found a week later, its loss explained by a simple engine failure. That follow-up was rarely included in sensational accounts. By cherry-picking data, by embellishing details, by ignoring inconvenient facts, myth-makers built a compelling but deceptive narrative. Cush argued the Bermuda Triangle was a manufactured mystery, born in libraries and writers' imaginations, not in the strange waters of the Atlantic. Section 5. Fact versus folklore. The critical work of researchers like Larry Cush created a clear divide in public understanding. On one side stands the folklore, a captivating, terrifying narrative. Paranormal forces, cosmic secrets. This version is filled with tales of electronic fog, spinning compasses, and sudden, inexplicable disappearances in placid seas. It speaks to our fascination with the unknown and our suspicion of official explanations. This is the triangle of books, movies, and late-night television shows, a place where the rules of physics do not apply and anything is possible. It is a powerful and enduring modern myth. On the other side stands the documented fact, a collection of individual tragedies with complex terrestrial causes. The region encompasses the stormy Gulf Stream and is prone to hurricanes, presenting genuine dangers to mariners and aviators. It accepts that human error, mechanical failure, and severe, unpredictable weather are the most probable causes. It points out that many stories have been wildly exaggerated or are entirely fictional. This is the triangle of the US Coast Guard, the Navy, and scientific investigators. A place that, while dangerous, is not fundamentally mysterious. Comparing different versions of the same event reveals how the legend was built. For Flight 19, folklore emphasizes a bizarre radio transmission about the sky and ocean, suggesting disorientation from an external force. The factual Navy report, however, contains no such transmission, focuses on the lead pilot's known history of getting lost and his fateful decision to fly east. For the USS Cyclops, folklore hints at a silent, instantaneous disappearance. The factual inquiry considers the much higher probability that its heavy cargo of manganese ore shifted in rough seas, causing the vessel to capsize too quickly for a distress call to be sent. Ultimately, the story is as much about human psychology and the power of media as about any geographical anomaly. People are drawn to mystery. We prefer a time-space vortex to a faulty carburetor or a sudden squall. The media often prioritizes sensationalism because mystery sells. The result is a powerful feedback loop where dramatic stories shape popular belief. which in turn fuels the demand for more of the same. The truth lies between these two poles, buried beneath decades of folklore. Section 1. The relentless sea, weather and waves. While tales of paranormal forces are captivating, scientists have long pointed to a more powerful and demonstrably deadly culprit: the weather. The Bermuda Triangle sits in a volatile meteorological neighborhood. It is the birthplace of tropical storms and the hunting ground of hurricanes, some of the most destructive forces on our planet. A storm that is just a whisper on a weather forecast can, in a matter of hours, explode into a monstrous tempest with winds exceeding 150 miles per hour and waves reaching astonishing heights. For a small boat or a light aircraft caught unawares, the encounter is a battle for survival against an overwhelmingly powerful adversary, a battle that is often lost. The sea needs no supernatural help to be lethal. The Gulf Stream, a massive and powerful ocean current, flows directly through the Bermuda Triangle. It is essentially a river within the ocean, a conveyor belt of warm water moving at speeds of up to 6 miles per hour. This current can have a profound effect on weather, creating its own localized microclimates. More importantly, when this swift current collides with winds blowing from the opposite direction, the wave action can become extraordinarily violent and unpredictable. Waves can become steeper and closer together, creating a chaotic and dangerous sea state that can overwhelm even experienced mariners. What might appear as a manageable storm elsewhere can be amplified into a vessel-destroying frenzy by the unique oceanographic conditions of the Gulf Stream. Scientists also point to the existence of rogue waves. Once dismissed as maritime folklore, these are now a documented and studied phenomenon. A rogue wave is a single, colossal wave that is at least twice the height of the surrounding waves, appearing unexpectedly in otherwise normal seas. They are not tsunamis, but rather the result of constructive interference, where several smaller waves merge their energy at the perfect moment to create a vertical wall of water. A wave of 80 or even 100 feet could easily capsize a large ship, breaking its back in an instant. Such an event would be so sudden and catastrophic that there would be no time for a distress call, leaving behind nothing but a few scattered bits of debris or nothing at all. For aircraft, the atmosphere can be just as treacherous. The region is known for extreme and rapid weather changes. A clear sky can give way to a violent thunderstorm in minutes. These storms can contain powerful updrafts and downdrafts known as microbursts, which can literally push a plane out of the sky or subject it to forces that exceed its structural limits. Furthermore, the immense energy within these storm systems can play havoc with radio communications, creating the static and silence reported in so many cases. When we look at the raw power of nature, many of the so-called mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle begin to look less like paranormal events and more like tragic encounters with a well-known killer. Section 2. The Earth's hidden tremors, geological hazards. Beneath the turbulent surface of the Triangle's waters lies another set of potential explanations, rooted not in the sky, but in the seafloor itself. One of the most intriguing and widely discussed scientific theories involves something called methane hydrates. These are vast frozen deposits of methane gas locked in ice-like crystals under the immense pressure and cold temperatures of the deep ocean floor. The continental shelves within the Bermuda Triangle are known to hold substantial reserves of these hydrates. They are stable under normal conditions, but a change in temperature or a seismic tremor could cause them to destabilize rapidly and violently. If a large deposit of methane hydrate were to suddenly melt, it would release an enormous volume of gas, erupting towards the surface in a massive churning plume. This process, sometimes called a seabed blowout, would drastically reduce the density of the water in the immediate area. A ship sailing into this patch of frothing, gas-filled water would lose its buoyancy almost instantly. It would be like sailing onto a hole in the ocean. The vessel would sink like a stone, plunging into the depth so quickly that the crew would have no time to react or send a distress signal. Laboratory experiments have confirmed that this is a physically plausible, if rare, scenario for the sudden loss of a ship. Once the ship is lost To the depths, the evidence would be almost impossible to find. After the gas dissipates, the water density returns to normal, leaving no trace of the event on the surface. The wreck itself could be buried under subsequent sediment shifts on the ocean floor, hidden forever. While this theory provides a compelling explanation for the sudden loss of ships without a trace, its application to aircraft is far more tenuous. It has been speculated that a massive methane release could create an explosive, unbreathable atmosphere above the water, potentially causing an aircraft's engines to fail, or even igniting. But this remains a highly speculative extension of the core theory. Another geological consideration is the topography of the seafloor in this region. The Bermuda Triangle is home to some of the deepest oceanic trenches in the world, including the Puerto Rico Trench, which plunges to a depth of over 27,000 feet. Any wreckage that sinks into such a trench is effectively lost forever. Our ability to search and recover objects from these extreme depths is severely limited. A plane that crashes or a ship that sinks will simply fall into an abyss, far beyond the reach of search teams. The ocean's own geography provides the perfect hiding place, concealing the evidence and thereby creating the illusion of a complete and total disappearance. Section 3. The human factor. Error and equipment. In our search for exotic and mysterious causes, it is easy to overlook the most common factor in any transportation accident: human error. Piloting a plane or captaining a ship is a demanding task that requires constant vigilance, sound judgment, and adherence to procedure. In the stressful and ever-changing environment of the open ocean, even the most experienced professionals can make mistakes. A simple navigational miscalculation, a failure to properly check fuel levels, a misinterpretation of weather data, a decision to press on into deteriorating conditions can have catastrophic consequences. Many official accident reports for incidents within the Triangle cite pilot or captain error as a primary or contributing cause. Looking back at the case of Flight 19, the official Navy investigation, despite its cause unknown conclusion, heavily focused on the actions of the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor. Evidence suggested he became disoriented and, trusting his own flawed judgment over his instruments and the advice from the control tower, led his squadron in the wrong direction, deeper into the Atlantic until their fuel was exhausted. It was not a paranormal force that confused him, but a known psychological phenomenon where a pilot's internal sense of direction overrides what their instruments are telling them. This single, tragic human failing likely sealed the fate of all 14 airmen in the initial flight. Alongside human error is the ever-present possibility of mechanical failure. Ships and aircraft are immensely complex machines, composed of millions of individual parts. A critical failure in an engine, a structural flaw in a wing, a faulty fuel line, or a catastrophic electrical short can lead to disaster. The MU-2B aircraft that vanished in 2017, for instance, had a safety record that was the subject of considerable debate, with some experts arguing it was unforgiving pilot error in certain tasks. A sudden, rapid depressurization at 24,000 feet could have incapacitated the pilot in seconds, explaining the lack of a distress call. The story becomes less about a mysterious force and more about the tragic, unforgiving physics of equipment failure at altitude. It is the combination of human error and mechanical failure in a hostile environment that creates the perfect storm for tragedy. A pilot flying a plane with a known maintenance issue might push their luck in bad weather. A ship's crew, fatigued from a long voyage, might not notice a critical system warning until it is too late. These are not sensational explanations, but they are the grim, everyday realities of transportation. The US Coast Guard, when asked about the Triangle, has consistently stated that they find no evidence of anything supernatural. Instead, they find that the number of losses is statistically insignificant, given the vast amount of traffic and the known environmental hazards of the area. Section 4. Where compasses fail, navigational anomalies. One of the most persistent and iconic elements of the Bermuda Triangle legend is the idea of compasses spinning wildly, rendering navigation impossible. This detail appears in countless stories, including the first-hand account of pilot Bruce Jernan. Scientists acknowledge that the Bermuda Triangle is indeed one of the few places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align. In most of the world, a compass needle points to the magnetic North Pole, requiring a correction called magnetic declination to find true geographic position. In the triangle, that correction isn't needed. The compass points to true north. This alignment is called the agonic line, and it shifts slowly as Earth's magnetic field drifts. It's a predictable geomagnetic feature, not magic. But an inexperienced navigator crossing the agonic line might be confused. Suddenly their usual correction vanishes or returns after a long time. That could cause errors, especially before GPS. But it's not paranormal, it's training and awareness. So what about reports of compasses spinning uncontrollably? Localized magnetic disturbances can happen. The seafloor sometimes holds high concentrations of iron, distorting compasses overhead. More dramatically, solar storms, huge eruptions from the sun, can trigger geomagnetic storms. Those storms can disrupt radio communications and in extreme cases induce currents that affect magnetic compasses and even disturb electronic navigation systems. A pilot flying through such a storm might see erratic instruments. Experts warn not to overstate this. Modern vessels use many tools, not just a magnetic compass. Gyroscopic compasses are immune to magnetic interference. And today most navigation relies on GPS satellites, which aren't affected by Earth's magnetism. So while geomagnetic storms could explain some historic failures, they're an unlikely cause today. There is no evidence of a permanent magnetic vortex in the triangle. No magnetic anomaly large enough to match the legends has been found. Section 1. Balancing the myth. Our journey through the swirling mists of the Bermuda Triangle is now drawing to a close. We have navigated the treacherous waters of documented history. We have navigated the treacherous waters of popular folklore. We have revisited the chilling silence that followed the disappearance of Flight 19. We have revisited the chilling silence that followed the disappearance of the USS Cyclops. We have listened to the dramatic, almost unbelievable testimony of eyewitnesses. They believe they encountered forces that defy our current understanding of the universe. These stories, passed down through magazines, books, and films, have constructed a powerful and seductive myth. A narrative of a cursed paradise where the laws of nature are suspended. Yet, when we turn from the allure of the myth and face the cold hard light of scientific inquiry, a different picture emerges. We have seen how the ferocious and unpredictable weather of the region, sudden hurricanes, colossal rogue waves, possesses more than enough power to destroy the mightiest ships and aircraft. We have explored the plausible, if rare, geological hazards like methane, hydrate eruptions, which offer a scientific mechanism for a vessel to vanish without a trace. The evidence presented by oceanographers, meteorologists, and physicists provides logical terrestrial explanations for events that have long been attributed to the paranormal. These forces are not otherworldly, but they are immensely powerful. Furthermore, we have confronted the uncomfortable but crucial roles of mechanical failure and human error. In the unforgiving environment of the open ocean, a single mistake, a faulty part, or a moment of disorientation can be the difference between a safe return and a tragic loss. The meticulous research of investigators like Lawrence Kusher revealed a pattern of exaggeration and misinformation, where inconvenient facts like severe weather or subsequent discoveries of wreckage were omitted to make a story more mysterious. A significant portion of the Bermuda Triangle legend, it turns out, was not discovered but manufactured, built on selective truths and a desire for a thrilling narrative. In balancing these two sides, we find that the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is not one singular enigma, but many. It is a collection of individual tragedies, each with its own story. Some, like the loss of the USS Cyclops, may forever remain unsolved, their secrets guarded by the immense depths of the sea. Others, like the fate of Flight 19, point strongly towards a cascade of human error and harsh conditions. The truth, it seems, is less about a single, malevolent force, and more about a complex interplay of nature's fury, technological vulnerability, and the fallibility of humankind when faced with the overwhelming power of the ocean. Section 2, the enduring allure of the unknown. So what are we to make of the Bermuda Triangle? Have we solved the mystery entirely? Perhaps not. Science has provided probable and logical explanations for the vast majority of the incidents. It has debunked the most sensational claims. It has shown how the legend was inflated by media. It has shown how the legend was inflated by folklore. The statistical reality is that the number of disappearances in this heavily trafficked area is not significantly greater than in any other comparable part of the world's oceans. The US Coast Guard does not recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a specific region of hazard. For them, the danger is simply the sea itself, raw and untamed. Yet the legend endures. It persists because it speaks to a fundamental part of the human spirit, our fascination with the unknown. It persists because of our desire to believe that there is more to this world than what we can see and measure. The stories of the Triangle are modern-day folklore. They are the sea monster tales of our technological age. They remind us that despite our GPS satellites and despite advanced radar, the planet still holds vast, unexplored regions and possesses forces we cannot fully control or predict. The idea that a place exists where one can simply vanish from our well-ordered world is both terrifying and strangely compelling. In the end, the Bermuda Triangle serves as a powerful cautionary tale. It cautions us against accepting sensational stories without question. It reminds us of the importance of evidence. It reminds us of the importance of critical thinking. It encourages us to look for the rational explanation before jumping to the fantastical, but it also invites us to wonder. It is a call to respect the immense power of the natural world, a world that can still surprise us. It is a memorial to the thousands of souls lost at sea, whose true final moments remain a mystery, whose stories fuel our enduring quest for answers. Perhaps the responsible way to view the Bermuda Triangle is with a healthy balance of skepticism and wonder. We can acknowledge the scientific facts that explain away much of the myth, while still respecting the genuine mysteries that remain. The ocean is vast, and its secrets are deep. As long as there are horizons we have not yet reached, and depths we have not yet explored, there will always be a place in our imagination for the strange and silent waters of the Bermuda Triangle. The allure of the unknown is a current as powerful and as timeless as the Gulf Stream itself.